All right, we're Baker and Molasses at the movies, only today it's Baker and Johnson at the movies.
Yes.
I have Zack Johnson here again,
My
graciously. Pleasure. Thank you very much. And we're going to talk first about previews, anything where either one of us is doing that we want to just promote real quick. And I have a talk coming up at Bookstore One on January 13th at 5:30 for the book I Heard You Paint Houses, which The Irishman is set on. And right now there's only one person signed up, and that's okay if only one person comes. We've had that happen before at the bookstore. Right. But it's sort of a book to movie talk. So we'll talk about the book, and then we'll talk about The Irishman too. And we'll see what happens. But we're definitely going to do a podcast or a show at some point with you and Ryan Prafke versus Gus and I. Not versus. It's not going to be like impunity where we scream at each other. No. But it's just going to be a fun debate about the
I'll
movie.
I'll be very interested to see what we all liked, didn't like.
Because
there's a lot in that movie to like and dislike. And
I really need to watch it again, too, to give it a fair shot. Because I think that's sort of important. So what about you? What's coming up for you? Like either with your band or anything?
Well, I know with my band, we've just we're heading into the new year, which we have a lot of performances. We perform almost every weekend in this area around Sarasota, Bradenton.
Cool.
You can find out on cloversrevenge.com. Honestly, I'm like blanking because there's so many. Like it's that problem of there's so many now that I can't think of off the top of my head. But I know we'll be playing at Pub 32 coming up soon. That's for locals here in Sarasota. And we will actually sort of be doing a little bit of a residency there. We'll be playing there every other month.
Nice.
So you can always come. You can come and check me out on Wednesday night by myself. I played last night down there, and I play some traditional Irish tunes and some very untraditional Irish tunes. And you never know. You throw the right amount of money in, I'll play pretty much whatever you want.
Now, my friend Tim Larson, he's in Connecticut now, but he was in a jazz trio, and he hated Christmas time because he didn't like Christmas music. And people would always say, like, they'd book the gig and go, "You're going to play Christmas songs too?" And he'd always be like, "Do I have to?" Yeah. So, do you play Christmas songs at this time, or no?
Well, I know in the band we have one Christmas tune that we do, but it's not your traditional Christmas tune. It's Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues.
Oh, okay.
So for those of you who know it, you know what I'm talking about, and you enjoy it. It's not your classic Christmas tune. If you've not heard of it, Google it.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
look it up.
I'm going to look it up.
Because it's a nice sort of acerbic Christmas tune.
I like it.
Yeah, but that's the only one that we do around this time. And,
okay. Well, speaking of acerbic, our featured movie we're talking about today is Marriage Story, which is a sort of an acerbic but realistic look at marriage and divorce. And I don't know how we want to start this, but I'll just let you...
Well, I'll start with sort of, I want to talk about the creator, Noah Baumbach.
Yes.
Like I mentioned last week, I've not been a fan of his. I have not enjoyed a lot of his films, and I'll admit... his big one was Squid and the Whale, and then Margot at the Wedding. I was kind of out after Margot at the Wedding. I was like, and those movies seemed so mean and nasty and acerbic, to say the least. And but it's funny. I saw this, and I'll just say, I just absolutely loved it. Like. And boy, did it strike home on way too many levels for me. But what I liked about this film was that, you're talking about something which is very difficult and hard and raw in going through a divorce. But I really felt like this is sort of like a love story about divorce.
I agree.
And... and I've always felt this. I mean, speaking personally about my divorce, my ex, I'm very lucky. We have a great relationship. We're a great co-parenting relationship. And, I think because and it's not that it was all, rainbows and sunshine, but there was definitely this feeling at the end of it, for me, this is of my divorce, not of the movie, but like that there was still love there, and and you kind of have to remember that you know, you loved this person at some point, and there is something I feel like that still loves them, but it's just different, and it's transmutated into something different.
And it's actually, just to piggyback on that, being divorced as well, it's almost like at least you have these beautiful creations out of it, right?
Right.
It wasn't a total loss.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
No. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
and it's almost like celebration. Like, I'm so glad we were together because look at these beautiful people.
Well, I think that's kind of. I honestly wonder about people who have been divorced and no kids. And I feel like they're the ones too who seem to want to like try again more quickly. Like, whereas I know most of my friends, including myself, who are divorced with kids, we're all just sort of like, I'm good, like that'll do.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think probably childless people divorced are probably more haunted about the what if, or you know what I mean, or whatever.
Well, I think it's that thing about where. Once you have a child and then you go through a divorce, I think you really get into the idea of like, you are not the priority, and your partner or potential partner is like super not the priority, and it's really hard to meld those two things, and and that's why I think, you know, and I can speak from experience, dating women who have had women after this who have had children, and the ones at this age who don't have children, like that is there too, of like, just like, wow, sorry, like you just clearly don't understand the hierarchy here. But I think there's something about that really comes through in this movie, and I would say in both of the characters. So I can just talk about sort of
it was so real, wasn't it?
It was so real.
The dialogue was so phenomenal.
Right, the dialogue was great and but also very naturalistic.
Exactly.
There was something about it. There were moments, like there's specific, like sort of scenes that stuck out to me about that with the dialogue. Is when Scarlett Johansson first goes to Laura Dern's office, and she gives this soliloquy basically about, you know, what has driven her to this point where she's ready to call it quits on the marriage.
And the fact that, like, that was one of the magic moments I wrote down, too.
Yeah.
And that Laura Dern is at the same point also, like, seducing her.
Yeah, oh my God, yes. Oh, it's...
From the get-go.
I mean, there's that where it's that dance of... Oh my God. But there was something, and the way, and I think that, to me, is... Scarlett Johansson's highest point in the movie is that dialogue. And there was something, like I said, there's something very sort of Sorkin-esque, like Aaron Sorkin dialogue thing, but not as polished and twee. Like this was, I could hear myself giving a speech like that. Totally. There was a naturalistic beat to it, and just so, it was raw but contained, and...
Because I worried before I saw it, I worried going in that I would not be able to forget Scarlett as Scarlett and Adam as Adam.
Right,
and I totally forgot in that moment that she was... I thought she was this person.
That was sort of... I know, it took me a little while, because first of all, like, I wonder if there was this, like, conscious thought of, like, let's give her a haircut that looks like she did it with a weed whacker to sort of, like, play down just how beautiful she is.
Exactly.
But I remember at that moment... that scene, you know, the movie started and I was in it and watching it and enjoying it, but that was sort of the moment where all of a sudden I realized, like, I was in, and like, and she had brought me in, and she, like, I was now like watching Nicole and
that is
not
also
Scarlett.
Realistic in marriages sometimes, where the wife becomes a mother and your looks go to the wayside. You don't have time.
Right.
You're gonna get a short haircut. You're not gonna dye your hair.
No, and I totally understand the idea of like of ease, you know, and just like I'm just gonna buy all black turtlenecks. You know, like I'm just simplifying everything.
Wash and wear look.
There were so many real wonderful moments too in this.
Well, the box cutter scene, forget about it.
Oh my God, that scene!
And I love Martha Kelly. I've loved her in Baskets.
I
don't know if you watch that show.
I do watch that show.
She plays basically the same character everywhere she goes.
Yeah, that like
but she's perfect.
She does play it perfectly. That scene was great. There's the scene though, and so like basically what I feel like, well, let's go about it like. the sort of very loose framing device of the letters.
Yes.
I thought that was so well executed, and you don't. A lot of times you can see something like that coming a mile away. I didn't see that coming. I thought, and two, it starts the movie off on this wonderful foot, because a lot of times with movies like this in this genre, you have to do two things. You have to sell that these people could be together in the first place.
Right.
And then you have to also sell if they were that into each other, why are they then, why are they no longer there? And so it did that perfect thing of talking about what they loved about each other, these letters of affection.
Like it encapsulated a whole relationship in a little bit of time.
Exactly, yeah. And like I can remember writing those things when we were going through counseling and stuff like that, or even just you do it not when you're just like, what I love about so and so, and you're talking about these things, but then also those things that you love about them then become the things that become quite adversarial, and they're the things, like one of the things I noticed, that the only thing that they both say they like about each other is their competitiveness.
I saw that too.
And then you see, because when they get mired in this adverse situation where they're not in it together, where they're apart, you see that competitiveness come out in both of them, and there's the big scene. I mean, the scene where just Adam Driver just. I'm so taken aback. Like, I just watched it before I came in here, and his fluctuations. And it's funny, I also rewatched the opening scene. There's a moment where, they're doing the montage of like the things I love about blah blah blah. Scarlett Johansson's talking about, she likes that he handles all of my moods and my modes, and she's just like, you can tell, like laying into him or just really upset about something, and he's sitting there quietly on the bed.
Right.
And then when you juxtapose it with this scene where he just explodes, and it's that thing too where I think we've all been there.
For sure.
We've had that with those of us who have gone through any kind of relationship ending. There is that moment where you both realize this is over, and I am just going to lay into all the filters off, and then he says like this terrible thing, and I can remember having that where you either you think it or you do say it out loud. You may not say it with as much
and then always in hindsight you're like, oh, I just wish my button hadn't been pushed. You know what I mean? If I could just stop.
And you just have that moment where you're literally
at the breaking point.
You break, you say something horrific about this person who you have professed to love, and then you immediately feel dreadful about it, and he just captures that
that's amazing.
so perfectly in that scene. And the way that scene plays out too, I think, we've been going, and at that point in the movie, you've been going like an hour and a half of watching these two people sort of avoid the conflict. And they've been trying to do, and they're
trying to keep it nice.
And but then it happens. And then there's that thing where they finally both open up at the same time to each other, and it is just,
it's powerful.
It's war, and but that scene is so real, and the fluctuations of it, oh man.
It was amazing.
I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's been a lot of, I don't know if controversy is the right word, but one of the major quibbles I've heard is that they feel like it's too sympathetic to the Adam Driver character.
No, I don't think so.
See, I thought it was a very balanced thing, because there are times where I'm watching it and I'm, having been through something similar, and being sort of a similar type of person, being an artist, and being so intense and just inside of your own head a lot of the time, and being kind of, I don't know, selfish, for lack of a better word.
He came off as very sympathetic. In fact, here's something I noticed on the second watch.
Or do you feel like that it sacrificed in making him seem sympathetic and her unsympathetic?
No, I think it was pretty even.
That's what